In our culture of appearances, we often measure value by size. The biggest car, the biggest house, the biggest donation. We like to show our generosity, to display our ability to give. But is that what truly has value in God's eyes? Is it the amount we give, or the intention and sacrifice behind what we give? Today's story takes place in the bustling courts of the temple in Jerusalem and reveals the surprising mathematics of God, a math that doesn't count coins, but counts hearts. It is a powerful lesson that forces us to question the true meaning of giving. On that day, Jesus was sitting opposite the place where people deposited their offerings for the temple. It was an area of great activity, a place where devotion and social status often mixed. He watched in silence, not as a judge, but as a teacher, seeing the lessons unfold before him. He watched the citizens of Jerusalem approach the treasury, a large chest with 13 trumpet-shaped openings. The atmosphere was a mix of piety and exhibition, a reflection of the human heart. Jesus observed, waiting for the right moment to teach his disciples a lesson that they, and we, would never forget. First, the rich approached. They were businessmen, landowners, dressed in fine fabrics. They walked with an air of importance, their generosity a performance for all to see. One by one, they would arrive at the treasury and, with grand gestures, drop in their offerings. These were not small coins. They were bags of gold and silver coins. The sound of the metal falling into the coffers was loud, an impressive noise that echoed through the courtyard, announcing their large donation. The people around looked on with admiration, their whispers validating the piety of these men. Jesus' disciples were also watching, likely impressed. Those large sums of money were what kept the temple running, what paid for the sacrifices and the work of the priests. In human logic, those were the most important offerings, the ones that truly made a difference. They were gifts that cost a lot of money, but perhaps they didn't cost much to the men who gave them. They gave out of their surplus, their abundance, from what they would not miss. Jesus continued to watch the scene, his face calm and thoughtful. He was not looking at the hands that gave, but at the hearts behind them. He knew that the greatest lesson of the day was yet to come, and it would not arrive with the clang of gold. Then, in the midst of that display of wealth, a different figure approached. It was a widow. In that society, to be a widow and poor was to be on the lowest rung of the social ladder. She had no husband to protect her or provide for her. Her appearance contrasted sharply with that of the men who preceded her. Her clothes were simple, perhaps worn. She didn't walk with confidence, but with a quiet humility, trying not to draw attention. She waited for a group of rich men to finish their loud offering before she approached the treasury. While the others made a point of being seen, she tried to be invisible. With a quick and almost secret gesture, she reached out her hand and deposited her offering. There was no sound of a bag of coins falling, no echo of gold or silver. There was only the nearly inaudible sound of 2 small copper coins tinkling at the bottom of the chest. They were 2 lepta, the smallest value coin that existed. To most people there, her gift was insignificant, an amount so small it was hardly worth donating. After giving, she did not wait for recognition. She turned and blended back into the crowd, disappearing as quietly as she had arrived. Almost no one noticed her. But Jesus saw. The moment the widow disappeared into the crowd, Jesus acted. He called his disciples, who were likely still commenting on the large donations they had seen. He gathered them around him, his eyes shining with the urgency of an important lesson. He pointed in the direction of the treasury, the site of the performance of wealth they had just witnessed. "Truly I tell you," he began, his voice silencing all other conversation, "this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others." Imagine the confusion on the disciples' faces. Peter, James, John, they had just seen men deposit what would be a year's wages for them. And now Jesus was telling them that the 2 smallest coins in existence were worth more than all of that. It made no sense in the world's logic. How could less be more? They looked at each other, questioning what they had heard. They had spent years with Jesus, yet he continued to challenge their understanding of reality, to turn the world's value system upside down. They saw the amount. Jesus saw the sacrifice, and he was about to explain the difference to them. Jesus looked at the confused faces of his disciples and explained the heavenly mathematics. They all, he said, referring to the rich, gave out of their wealth. This phrase was the key to everything. The rich men gave large sums, but those sums were a small fraction of their vast wealth. Their gift did not require a true sacrifice. They would not have to give up a meal, a piece of clothing, or any comfort because of their offering. Their donation was, in essence, painless. It was giving from their surplus, from what they would not miss. But she, Jesus continued, his voice filling with emotion, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on. The widow's small offering represented 100% of what she possessed. Those 2 coins were perhaps the money for her next meal. By giving them, she was not giving from her comfort, she was giving from her very survival. Her act was not a simple donation. It was an act of total and radical faith. She was placing her complete trust in God to provide for her needs, giving him the little she had. For the rich, the offering was a transaction. For the widow, it was an act of total worship. The lesson of the widow's offering is one of the most profound and challenging in the entire gospel. It forces us to look into our own hearts and ask, how do we give? Do we give God the leftovers of our time, our energy, our money? Or do we give him our everything, our best, our sacrifice? This story teaches us that God is not impressed by the size of our gifts, but by the condition of our hearts. He doesn't need our money, but he desires our total trust. The widow's 2 coins can represent many things in our lives. It can be the little time we have, which we dedicate to serving someone. It can be our talent, which we use for his glory, even when we are tired. What matters is not how much we give in comparison to others, but how much it costs us to give. May we have the courage to be like the widow, to offer our lives to God, not out of our abundance, but out of our total dependence on him, trusting that he always honors a sacrificial heart. If you desire to have a generous heart like the widow's, a heart that trusts God above all else, I invite you to leave your name in the comments. Let us pray for one another, that we may all learn to give everything we have, trusting that he is our true provider.